Hey y'all, Will here, otherwise Zelray, and today talking about Once Human, we're going to be going over the Prismverse Clash in a little bit more detail. We do know that it'll be launching September 27th, that's just a little bit later this month. And last night or this morning from the Chinese YouTube website called Bilibili, we are getting some more information that is either leaking or just the Chinese sneak peek of what we are to expect with Prismverse Clash. What we knew was Prismverse Clash is going to be a faction-based combat PvP scenario. What we didn't know is how much of it was going to be open world, if there were going to be safe zones or anything of that nature, and there will be. It seems like the first thing that happens when we enter Prismverse Clash is that we are welcomed by Mitsuko, and she tells us that we need to choose. Are we going to be siding with the Rosetta, or are we going to continue to side with the Mayflies? This decision locks you into whichever side you choose, and from there, then you have to play the anomaly game. The goal will be to collect these prism, or in the Chinese version, reverse deviations, that we then have to uncorrupt or turn into standard deviations, and by doing that, we then get points for our faction. Yet there's a twist. There are safe zones and there are conflict zones, and only in confrontation or conflict zones can you have these reverse deviations or prism deviations be turned back into what they should be and gain points. And in these confrontation zones, your bases can be attacked. Now, we don't know how healthy or weak a base will be, but there is a sense of raiding in this, and people are coming for your reverse deviations to gain points for their faction instead of your own. And I know that is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I will agree with you there 100%. For PvE players that do not want anything to do with PvP or absolutely despise the fact of a PvP type situation that they can lose their material and what they are working towards is absolutely frustrating. And that is going to be a select portion of the population that will not want anything to do with the Prismverse Clash. What I will say is that if you're on the cusp of that, you can keep your own zone in safe zones and help protect someone else in your hive's base or territory to be able to protect and potentially help your faction gain these points. Yet for those who are still not interested, there is good news yet. Settlement phase is in phase 4. That means this is a very short scenario, and PvP scenarios might not be that long when we do get them. And this fortunately lines up with the assumption that the Way of Winter will be releasing next month. This also means if you're not interested in playing this, you can wait it out, and by the time your 4 weeks are up in your current scenario, being Manibus or Evolution's Call, you can easily transition straight into Way of Winter. Now let's get into the PvP stuff a little bit more and really take a look at what it means. All world events, this includes Paradise Lost, Dig to Hell, Chirons, whatever you can think of, are going to be PvP events. And it seems like either we have to contest the other side for it before we can actually use the event, or during the event we had to fight off the other side for us to be able to reap the rewards. And these world events are going to contain these reverse or prism deviations that then we need to purify. While this sounds fun, we also have to realize there are going to be very few teleporters out in the wild. Most teleporters will stay in the safe zone, and other than that, we may be able to teleport back to our base on that 10-minute timer. We're going to have to find out. With this, our camps that people sometimes use, but not too many people use, are going to become a lot more reliable because we can respawn at the camp that we put down, which means that we have a respawn point near what we're contesting. On top of that, hive trucks may also be very useful for this as well, so we have extra respawn points in the world. If you don't get back to your base and assuming your base does not get attacked for your prism or reverse deviations, if you do die or go into a safe zone, you will be dropping this prism deviation for the enemy. Now, you do go into a down but not out phase where your allies can be able to bring you back, but that also ensures that you have to be around people to make that actually happen, or be able to use an adrenaline shot. Now, people can shoot you down when you're in your down but not out phase, mostly like any other battle royale if you aren't familiar with the PvP currently. Another mechanic within the Rosetta vs. Mayfly is how they operate within their ranks. Rosettas are going to be based around technology, and you're going to have drones able to assist you in combat and do a variety of different actions. And on the other side, the Mayflies are more of superhumans or genetic altering beings, where they're going to be more about injecting themselves with serums and injections of whatever type to give themselves more powers, which you should see in the background here. You can pause and take a look at both those screenshots to give you an idea of exactly what they do. These seem very much like mimetic specializations, seeing as the Mayflies can have a lightning bolt strike every 10 seconds to the nearest enemy, and things of that sort. The drones can heal and potentially revive your allies. And it goes further and further, where you can have the ability to gather more parts from disassembly as well on the Mayfly side. You also have many different birth points or starting locations within the scenario that you can choose from as well. Furthermore, the Rosetta and the Mayflies have their own safe zone, and then there is a neutral safe zone as well that you can choose to put some beneficial bases. How I think these are going to work more often than not is that your entire hive or warband will have its own stationary main base, so make sure that your hive mates are going to be good friends that you can trust not to steal your stuff, and that way you have one base being where all your good stuff is stored, and then you have outposts in the confrontation area that will allow you to turn these deviations and purify them, or have outposts around events or other things that might be of most use for you. Maybe you want to have a farming location because all the higher level nodes, from what I'm hearing, will also be in these confrontation zones. The phases will be unlocking more and more of the territory, it does seem, and also with that, we're not going to have very much story to go along with this as we are typically used to. We're going to be using the same map that we are familiar with, but it will unlock in a different manner to allow this PvP scenario to facilitate itself appropriately. Now, we are still, and I know that a ton of people are waiting for Way of Winter, so we do get the new northern snowy map, which I'm super excited for, but at least we're able to see how Once Human and Star Studios mainly is going to be changing their maps around so we can have a map region act differently than what we're normally seeing, which is going to be a very fun and different idea. With that covers pretty much what I have seen, and trying to go through it as quickly as possible, what wraps up the Prism versus Clash. Now, if you're interested or not interested in this, I'd love to hear your side of the story here, your opinion of what you think is good or not good about this type of scenario type. However, what I think is more and more competitive battleground-like events are going to make it so we don't have to worry about zerging, which is always a terrible thing in a lot of PvP type games. You can look back at New World being the most recent that I can think of, where swarming and zerging makes it very unfun for the minority faction within the game. Now, there is something to be said of having a 4-man group versus 6 or 8-man group and being able to be on equal ground, which makes you feel good and like you understand the game. But when you're that same group of 4 and 20 people come up on you, it becomes a very different story. So I'm going to be curious on how they try to balance that out as best as they can, especially in events where everyone swarms them immediately. One thing I will give the PvP balancers credit for recently is that PvP has felt like the time to kill has gone up drastically, so people aren't dying immediately. It feels like you actually have some time. And also being able to hear the hit markers land on your character makes it feel like you actually know what's going on compared to you just getting downed immediately without any type of clue because you weren't paying attention to your health 100% of the time. So I do feel like Star Studios is making good effort into making PvP more fun, balanced, and fair, yet there are still going to be outlying guns that are super strong, and I'm curious on how much defenses we can employ against them to make it feel like we stand a chance. On the other hand, if the enemies are going to be able to employ the same amount of defenses, are a lot of guns going to fall flat on their face because they just don't do enough damage to be able to equate an easy or fair kill that makes it feel like you're actually being part of the event or participating in the event. And with that, that is the end of the video. I know I haven't been posting too recently. This is my first upload in about a week, but I've gone over so much stuff in Once Human and I'm repeating content that I'm kind of struggling to find the best thing to put content out on. If you have ideas, let me know and I'll be happy to hear you out and see what I can do on those, or maybe I've already done it and I can tell you about it. Outside of a couple not so touched upon weapons and other builds of the sort, I'm on the hunt for content that I like to do and potentially bring out for you guys to watch. With that though, thank you for watching. Later.